this episode's for anybody feeling stuck or uncertain about their path in education. I just want to take the time to explain my journey in the field of education. And it starts way back when I was 18 years old. I had this desire to want to help students, help kids. And it so happened that my youth pastor at the time, she knew somebody, a principal that worked at a Lutheran school. And she got me a job as a playground supervisor. So that's where I first started, as a playground supervisor at the age of 18. And I started to get to know the kids. I started to work. I had no experience really. I'm 18 years old and I'm working with these kids, and I started to do really well. I did a playground supervisor, then I did the after school program, then I did the summer camp. And I was there for about 3 years. There was a time when I was a PE teacher. I did that for about a year and a half or so at that Lutheran school. And I developed all these skills, but there was something that I started to realize. I started to outgrow the position. Being an after school or a playground supervisor, or even the PE teacher at that school, I started to outgrow that position. And I was like, you know what? I need something different. I need something challenging. And that's been the theme of my life, where when I outgrow a position, something opens up. Something always opens up. And at that time right there, I outgrew that position, and I applied to work at a group home for kids who've been abused and neglected, and they got taken away from their home, and they were placed in this one group home. And I was what was it called? The campus supervisor. Now, this is where I learned hurt people hurt people. This is where, I didn't realize, working with individuals that were hurting so much could cause, they were just hurting so much. And so, I was, I don't know, maybe at the time I was like, I don't know, 19 years old, 20 years old. And I'm working with these kids, and these kids are like, they would curse at me, they would spit at me, they would want to fight me. And I'm young. I don't know how to respond to something like that. And it was a real eye opener. There was somebody that worked on campus. His name, we called him Mr. Oscar, and he kept his poise. He was an older gentleman. He kept his poise. He was able to work with these students. And all I did was just observe Mr. Oscar. Mr. Oscar knew how to talk to the kids. Mr. Oscar knew how to connect to the kids. Mr. Oscar kept his composure. He was cool, and he was even a big man. He was like, I don't know, he was like 5'6", maybe like 120 pounds. But all the kids respected Mr. Oscar. And I'm watching Mr. Oscar, and I'm learning from him. And the 1 year I was there for 1 year, and that 1 year that I worked with at that group home, observing Mr. Oscar, I learned a whole bunch. But during that time, I had just got my bachelor's degree, and I was like, you know what? It's time for me to move on. I got my bachelor's degree. I need to get a different position. I need to make more money. And so I applied to be a one-on-one assistant for students with autism, and I got the job. And so I remember the first day, we were at a middle school. I worked with this one student at a middle school. And the knowledge I got from the supervisor was all the BIIs, all the one-on-ones prior to me quit. They quit because it was this student was just way too difficult to work with. And so he kind of gave me the heads up, and I was like, okay, and so in my mind, I had all this experience. I worked I worked at that one Lutheran school. I worked at a group home. I was like, I got this. And so I started working with this one student at a middle school. He was a handful. And it was at the very beginning. It was real tricky to try to figure him out. But one day, I remember bringing in this magazine. It was called Nintendo Power. And in this magazine, there was just video games, just like a video game magazine. And I remember as he's working, I'm just going through the magazine, and he keeps on looking at the magazine. He's like, can I see it? And I give him the magazine, and he's like, oh, and he's going through it, and I see him pausing on Pokemon, and I can see that he likes the Pokemon game. And I had the Pokemon game, and I had a Game Boy. And so I was like, you know what? If you do your work, I'll bring in my Game Boy, and I'll give you like 10 minutes to play Pokemon. He's like, oh, cool. And so that was it. Trying to figure out what he wanted, using it as like a token. Like, hey, if you just do your work, you follow directions, I'll give you some free time. You could play this Pokemon game. And that worked, and I developed a great relationship with this student, and he started to do really well in class, all because he could have time to play a Pokemon game, right? And so, but we had a really great relationship, and so I remember just sitting in these classrooms, right, going from class period to class period. I'm young. I'm probably like 21 at the time, and this is where I wanted to become a teacher. I remember sitting in the back, and every one of these classrooms, I remember these teachers just handing out like these packets, these worksheets, and then going back into their seats and just sitting down, reading the newspaper, putting their feet up, not really pay attention to the kids, just here's the assignment, get to work. And I remember looking around like all these students right here look just like me. Everybody in here look brown and black. That's why I see all, and you're going to go ahead and just hand them a packet, and you're going to go ahead and sit back and sit down in your seat and not help them at all. That's what you're going to do. And I said to myself, you know what? I need to become a teacher. I need to become an educator. I need to help students that look just like me. This is ridiculous. And so I remember getting the Sunday Times in the back. There used to be something called the Classified, and that's where you would find jobs. I remember looking, and there was a Catholic school opening, right? There was a Catholic school opening, and on the assignment it said no credentials needed. And I was like, perfect. I have my bachelor's degree. I could do it. I could apply for this job. And so, sure enough, I got an interview for that position. And I remember going to the interview. I'm young. I'm 22 years old at the time, and I'm sitting in the interview, and there's, you got the principal, the assistant principal, you got a bunch of teachers in there, and they're asking me questions. And I'm young. I'm 22 years old. I have no teaching experience. I just have this passion, this youth. And I remember fumbling through the questions and not doing too well. And then the assistant principal, he asked me one last question. He says, Mr. Vergara, how's your relationship with God? This is a Catholic school. How's your relationship with God? And I remember taking a deep breath. And I explained my relationship with God. I was like, this is what it is. This is my relationship with God. And after I finished explaining that, they thanked me. I remember leaving. I was like, man, I nailed that last question. I nailed that last question. I get my car. I go home. I'm about to eat dinner, and I get a phone call. And it's the school. And it's the school offering me the position as a first grade teacher. And so I'm like, I was so excited. I was like, finally, I could be a teacher. Here I go. I'm 22 years old. I'm young. Here we go. First grade teacher. So I started working at this Catholic school, and it's crazy because I had no teaching experience prior to this. I didn't know how to lesson plan. I didn't know how much time am I supposed to do ELA? How much time for math? I didn't know all these things. I had no idea. They were just in the back, a stack of like teacher manuals, old teacher manuals. It was like, all right, use these. And I got no guidance. And I was like, let's go, let's do it. And so I started to read those books, and I started to come up with my own lessons. And, I started to, just teach these kids reading, writing, math, how to add, it was great. I had a great experience. I loved it. Because I was so young, I had so much energy. I'd bring in puppets, and I had this skeleton that I used for Halloween, but I'd take him out. His name was Mr. Bones, and we would just use him like a puppet. And we did all kinds of fun stuff. And I learned how to be a teacher at that school. And I was there for 6 years. And during that 6 years of time, I got my credentials, and I got 2 master's degrees because I felt like I had to equip myself on how to become how to become a teacher, right? And so at this time, I was married, and I had 3 kids at the time. And I was like, this is not gonna, I love being at this Catholic school, but the amount of money that I'm getting here is just not enough. I can't survive. My family can't survive on this. And so I decided, it's time for me to go. So after 6 years, I applied to the local district, and I got the position. See, I outgrew the other position. It was time for me to move on. And so I got the position. I started working in the Pico Union area as a 3rd grade teacher for the local district. And, I felt great. I was again, young. I had all this experience, playground supervisor, PE teacher, after school, I worked at a group home, a one-on-one. a Catholic school teacher for first grade students, had all this experience, right? And so I'm like, teaching third grade is gonna be easy. So I get in there, and this is where there was open court. There was open court, and you had to follow. It was like a scripted program. I wasn't used to that, but I was like, all right, well, let's do it. Let's go open court. Here we go. And this is, I use all this knowledge. This is where I started to, like classroom management started. It wasn't even a problem for me right now. Building relationships with students became easy because I've been doing it for years, right? And so I started to feel good. I started, man, I feel like I'm a great teacher. But what happened was at that time, and this is there wasn't enough students to keep me on staff. And so my position as a third grade teacher, because I had the lowest seniority, and I didn't realize that, the seniority matters. This experience, seniority trumps experience. And so, and this was my first year with the local district. They were like, your position is going to get cut. You're going to have to find a different school. I was like, okay, cool. Now, all this time I've been working like in the Pico Union area in LA, And I was looking for a position, and I so happened I got hired at West Hollywood Elementary School. It was like night and day. The Pico Union students and West Hollywood students, night and day. And so I started working in West Hollywood. And this is where I started to feel this feeling of like, these students don't really need me. These students are good. They got private tutors. They got all this extra help here. There's money here. These students, I felt this was not my calling. I remember working at this school, and during any holiday, like, I don't know, Christmas, I get like $50 gift cards. I get colognes. I get all kinds of like expensive stuff. I was like, wow, what is this? I'm not used to that. And every like gift, they knew my birthday. They give me gifts for my birthday. They had silent auctions, and we go to these parties, and all these fancy people were there, and it was like, well, this is amazing. But at the same time, I felt like these kids don't need me. I need to go where they need me. I need to get back to the Pico Union area where the kids really need me. And so, this is back in like 2009, 2010, where the district was making cuts, and they were giving RIF notices to first and second year teachers of the district. And that year, at the closing of the year, I got a RIF notice saying, there's a reduction in force. We're gonna have to let you go. You're only a second year teacher here at the district. We're gonna have to let you go. And I was devastated. At that time, I was silly with my credit card, and my credit card balance was ridiculous. And, I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And so I thought I was going to be saved. Like somebody was going to save me at the end of the school year. Something was going to happen, and it didn't happen. And I got a RIF notice, and I didn't have a job, and I wasn't receiving a paycheck, and I got an unemployment. I remember when, I had to stop paying my credit card bills, and the creditors would call me, and I would be all nervous to talk to them. I'd be like, oh, like I'd just be nervous. I'm like, no, don't answer the phone. Don't answer the phone. Months passed, and that feeling of being scared of the crowd. I would pick up the phone and be like, you know what? I don't have it. I lost my job. I don't know what to tell you. You could settle with me or something like that, but I don't know what to tell you. During that time, at the end of the summer, I remember the district offered me a position as a substitute teacher. That hit my pride. Like here I am with 2 master's degrees. I've been a teacher. I have all this experience with a broad range of students, and you are only going to offer me a substitute teacher position? That's ridiculous. And it hurt my pride. I remember when people would ask me questions like, oh, how's it going? Are you still a teacher? And it would hurt my pride to be like, nah, I'm a sub right now. I wouldn't even want to say that because my pride was so hurt, and it was silly. But my pride was hurt. I remember getting these sub jobs. I get a call in the morning, and I have to go to a certain school, and I would hate it. This is stupid. I hate this. But then I started to like it. I liked the freedom of being a substitute teacher. I liked, like, if I didn't like this place anymore, I could just pick up and leave. I don't have to ever be here again. I don't ever have to come to school. You know, I started to like it. I remember the thing that I would do is I'd bring in a big old jar of candy and I'd place it on top of the desk when I go to a new school. And I would just start the day, and there's a big old thing of candy right there. And then the kids would ask me, they would say, Mister, what's that for? And I was like, that's for you guys. If you just listen and follow directions and just do your work, I'm just going to hand it out. Like, see that person sitting right there? Here's a candy for you. You're just sitting down waiting for instruction. Here's a candy for you. Oh, you're doing it too? Here's one for you too. And it was like my classroom management tool, the box of candy. I don't care how much it cost me. It saved my life every day as a substitute teacher. And so, I started liking being a substitute teacher. I remember, just experiencing different offices, different energies in different classrooms, different school environments, and walking to one school and being like, wow, this school is amazing. The office staff is amazing. This building feels good. And I remember going to certain schools where I was like, wow, this feels ugly. I don't want to be in a school like this. What is it? Why does this place feel so ugly? And why does it feel so ugly in this classroom, in this office, in this building, in this school? And so, you learn from being a substitute teacher, from going from class to class, school to school. But I wanted to go back in the classroom. It was like, this is great being a sub, but I need to go back in the classroom. This is not work. This is not going to work for me. I have a family. I have 3 kids. I need to I need to get a real job. And so I applied to maybe 50 jobs over that summer when my first year of being a substitute teacher was over, about 50 jobs. And one of them called me, and a few of them called me, but I got maybe a couple of interviews, but one in particular, and I got a job as a charter school teacher, a middle school charter teacher. And the pay wasn't the same. It was less. It was really lower than what I was getting with the local district. And the benefits, I had to pay for my benefits. But what I was told was if I was a substitute teacher and I just work 1 day a month with the district, I could still keep my health benefits. And so I got the job as a charter school teacher, but 1 day out of the month I was sub for the district so that I could keep my district benefits. And so that's what I do. I did that for about 4 or 5 months. And sometime in December of that school year, I get a call from the district, and the district says, "Hey, we're going to go ahead and hire teachers back again. Would you like to be hired by the district again? You have to work at a middle school near MacArthur Park in Pico Union area," which that's where I wanted to work. I was like, perfect. Let me just talk to these people right here. And being at a charter school, you have a year-to-year contract, and they could just let you go whenever. And I went to my director at the time, and I was like, you know what? They're offering me this job. Can you match this salary? Can you match these health benefits? And they were like, no, we can't match that. I was like, all right, cool. Here's my 2-week notice. I'll be gone in 2 weeks. And I went back to the district. So I went back to the district, and crazy story. I went back to the district, and I'm working at MacArthur Park. I'm working near MacArthur Park at a middle school, and I loved it. It was a great place. These students right here needed me, and I did that for 6 years. And this is where I learned this lesson of who you hang around with is important. Who you hang around with is important, because the teachers that I hung around with, right, they all got their admin credentials. Every one of them got their admin credentials. And so I'm hanging out with them. They're talking about they're in this program, they're doing these things. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. I could do it too. If you guys do, I could do it too. And I applied to get my admin credentials. Now, my intentions weren't to be an admin. I needed salary points to max out my pay as a classroom teacher. And I figured, get my admin credential, I'll max out with salary points, I'll get the maximum pay. And that's what I did. And so I got my admin credential. I was there for 6 years at this school. But during that time, I got my admin credentials, and I sat on my credential for maybe 2 or 3 years. Didn't even use it. I was like, you know what? I don't have no real intentions to even use this thing. I just needed my salary points so I could max out my pay. And so, I'm working there for about 6 years, and I start to feel like, you know what, I'm outgrowing this position. Uh, I'm outgrowing this position. Classroom management is so easy. I develop relationships with students, and it's easy for me. Teaching math and science, this curriculum is easy for me. I've outgrown this position. Let me try something new. And I went down to teach um, fifth grade at a same area, Pico Union area, and I taught fifth grade for 3 years. And I'm feeling like I'm outgrowing being a teacher. I've been a teacher probably for about 18 years now. All of the experience that I've had, everything is just too easy for me. Classroom management is easy. Prepping students for the SBA test is easy. Teaching the curriculum is easy. I also felt like a lone wolf. Like, I don't need anybody's help. Like, you guys are over there. This is how you do things. And it just was just so easy for me. And I was like, I need to probably use my admin credentials because I'm not growing anymore. I'm not growing. And so I need to do something different. And I got a call from somebody that I used to work summer school with. And they were like, hey, we have a dean position at our span school right here. Would you be interested in applying to this position? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I'll apply. I applied and I got the job. Now, being a dean was probably one of the more difficult jumps I've ever made. I went from being a rock star teacher where everybody loved me. Oh, Mr. Vergara, you're the best teacher. Oh, Mr. Vergara, we love you. To going to a school where I had to implement discipline, and everybody dislikes you. All the students dislike you because you're implementing discipline, and all the teachers don't really like you because they expect you to do one thing, but you could only do this thing, and so you don't meet their expectations, and so then there's that issue as well. Being a dean, I remember being a dean and everybody telling me this is what a dean is supposed to be. This is how you're supposed to be a dean. Last year's dean was like this. This is what this. And so we expect you to do the exact same thing. And this is where I was fighting that. Like, no, I'm my own person. I have years of experience. I know what I'm doing. Don't tell me how to be my job. Let me learn to do this job. Let me use my experience. Let me develop let me build relationships with students with the most difficult behavior. And if I build those relationships with the students with the most difficult behavior, then I could probably change their behavior. And that's where I learned that skill, as being a dean. And so, first year was probably one of the roughest years I've ever had at working in the field of education because nobody liked me. Nobody liked me, I felt. Second year, building relationships, students are listening to me a little bit more. Teachers are buying into my program, what I'm doing. And then the third year, it starts to become easy again. That's when COVID happens, right? COVID happened and we go online and it's now I'm a virtual dean, which is weird. I'm a virtual dean. And yeah. So we go back to school, and the district now has all this money, and they're hiring new assistant principals. They're hiring new assistant principals over special education. And I'm like, let me try that. Let me apply to something like that. Now, I don't have a background in special education. I've never worked special education, but I have my admin credentials and there's an opportunity. And so I took it and I applied to different local districts. And one of them, I didn't get it. Another one, I didn't get it. And then I got it at this other local district. I got hired as a, assistant principal for special education. And so now that's my current job, assistant principal for special education. And I've done it for the last 5 years. And it's been a crazy road. It's been a crazy road where I went from at 18 doing like playground supervision to being an assistant principal. I went from working Catholic school to public school, to losing my job, getting a RIF notice, to working at a charter school, to getting my job back, to working in tough areas, learn how to build relationships with students with difficult behavior, learn how to teach the curriculum, learn how to connect with students, learn how to create positive environments from all the different schools that I've seen and worked at, that all played into it. And so I have this field of knowledge, all this knowledge I have from all the experience that I've had over the years. It's funny because like during COVID, everybody starts to go on TikTok. And that's where I started to be like, let me try social media. Let's just talk about my experiences. Let's just talk about how to build relationships with students with difficult behavior, because that's right up your alley. That's what you know. And I started to make little videos of that, little tiny videos about like, hey, this is how you build relationships with students with difficult behavior. And it kind of took off a bit, and it kind of gave me this passion of like, let's just continue. Let's help as many educators as you possibly can learn how to build a relationship with students with difficult behavior. And that's how all of this happened. That's why I'm making this video. That's why I have a TikTok and an Instagram. That came from that, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I just wanted to share this with you, that if you're struggling with your own journey, and maybe you might have got a RIF notice, or maybe you're a substitute teacher right now, or maybe you don't know, maybe you're uncertain about your position, just know that there is a plan for you. You got to stick to your plan and watch doors open for you, because that's how it worked out for me. All right. So I hope this is encouraging for you. Thank you for watching. Go ahead and like this, share it, subscribe, whatever you can to help boost this channel. I greatly appreciate that. Thank you for spending time with me, hearing this long story of my journey. You have a good day.